Hi, Sierra. Just gonna give you a bit of video feedback on your work for the 5 characteristics posting. So let's go ahead and start screen share here. Move us over. Okay, so let's take a look. We have your posting here. Good job. Very first, let's start off with you got your name. All right, great. Sierra _ 5 characteristics. Perfect. Be sure you put your name on every single one of these. That is one of those things that people just forget to do, is to include their name on their postings. All right, let's take a look at direction. Right. Well, so I like quite a bit that you are indicating the position of each one of these. That's good. It's indicating that you are understanding the point of these, or at least this component, and that is we're exploring how the variation of direction can influence the overall feeling behind the image. So very good. We are getting an excellent sense of where the light is coming from in each of these photos. Your use of a horizon line here, this is unique. Not a lot of students pulled back and shot from a distance the way you're doing here, and including this line here that you have in several of your images. That's called a horizon. Whether you have it on a tabletop or whether it's in a big landscape, when you have that defining line, it's considered to be a horizon, and it immediately establishes a sense of a landscape. It establishes an environment in a way. It can be troublesome sometimes because then what happens is the image tends to be more about subject. And I think you're towing the line here. You're getting very close to these looking like portraits of bottles, but your work with the lighting, particularly with the shadows in the background, the sort of dynamic and minimal direction of the bottles and the shapes, I think is very excellent work here. You're playing with the way that some objects cast shadows on other objects. It's all very, very good in terms of how you're doing it. This image is a little bit slightly overexposed, meaning it's slightly too bright compared to the others. Excellent work in terms of variation of composition. You're selecting different compositions for each posting, and that's excellent. Again, you would think that that would be something that kind of goes without saying. It should be a different looking picture each time, but that's not always the case. There will be some exercises later in the semester where you're being asked to make the same photograph compositionally, but just different lighting, or different focus, or different whatever. And that's the specifications. So following specifications of a project, that comes right back to professional development. When you're working in the field, when you're working as a professional, project specifications have no wiggle room. You have no variation. If they need something that's in black and white, you better make it black and white. If they need something that is horizontal photograph, you better make it horizontal photograph. So it seems like you're following that principle pretty well in these. Let's take a look at intensity. Intensity, again, is all about two lights. One key light, which is your main light, establishes direction. Then a fill light, a fill which its job is to supplement the shadows. It's really meant to add a little bit of tone and variation inside. So let's see how we're doing there. Very good. It looks like you're moving around the table, which is kind of interesting. This and this they appear to be very similar shots. And it's good. Looks like you're moving around the table with the same composition. That's good. These are getting to be a little bit the same, but I think they're far enough away to be acceptable, especially since now you're adding these little shadows there. That's very good. What this tells me, stuff like this, is that you're looking at the entire frame. When you're looking through your rangefinder there, and you're looking at the composition, you're not just looking at the bottles or one portion or the other, you're looking at it as an entire frame. And that is so important. You would know sooner focus on just a tiny portion of a photograph than you would focus on a tiny portion of a giant piece of paper in a drawing. You would just draw this tiny little thing on a giant piece of paper and say, that's what you should be looking at. In a photograph, the whole frame is just important. And so small things like, doing something like this, seeing that and incorporating it into the composition is very important. Tells me exactly that you're looking at the whole thing. Very good, very good. Yeah, I mean, I can tell that there's two lights going on here, really, because we have directions of shadows going in different, shadows going in different directions and highlighted differently. Now temperature. Let's see what we're working with temperature. Very subtle. You got some real subtle stuff going on here. Well, that's quite nice in terms of the shift. Very good. So yeah, I mean, you're working with some real subtlety. You maybe chose some of the more subtle variations in terms of the color variations, and that's purely up to you. I am seeing evidence that you are exploring, like this image, you're exploring the edges, and that's also very good. We do have some, again, we're getting a little bit repetitive here in terms of the compositions. Again, not so much that I would say it's over the top. Some postings have been just straight up the same photo over and over and over again. But really, explore, especially when you are choosing which images to post, explore variations of the compositions. Contrast. Now this, of course, this one has to do with not the blacks and the whites, but all the shades in between. You have your lights and you have your darks. And with contrast, the way we're approaching it in this project was to add the reflector, and then the reflector then bounces light back into it. So in these images, what we're looking for are variations of lights to dark. Here, these two images are identical. I mentioned it a couple of times. Avoid that when you're doing your postings. It's perfectly fine to create these variations when you're shooting. However, when you're selecting the images to include in a posting, try to select, definitely select images that are variations of compositions, not the same composition over and over. Yeah, we're seeing definitely some good things. I mean, even though we do, have that composition kind of repeating over and over again, you can definitely see how reflecting into this into this image here reflecting into this image softens this shadow and completely changes the way that the image looks. These being two very similar compositions tells us that right away, that you're reflecting right into here, which is softening this effect and creating a whole nother look altogether. Excellent job, excellent job. Hardness, all about shadows. Hardness is about the shadow. When talking about hardness, that's what we're talking about, the hardness of the shadows. And really what we're hoping to find in this part of the exercise is going to be variations in the shadows. So in other words, some shadows are hard, crisp lines, some shadows are soft. That contrast really adds a variety to the photograph. And you can achieve that through diffusing one light and not diffusing the other. And that's part of what we were doing in the project, where you were asked to diffuse one light, but have the other light hard. You should be seeing soft shadows and hard shadows in the same image. And so when we're seeing, this image, for instance, you see this hard shadow here, and then we see softened shadows over on this edge. That shows us that we have one light that is hard, one light is not. And again, you're creating a beautiful variation. It creates complexity in the shadows where otherwise they just wouldn't be there. Your exposures and your techniques look all, very good. It looks like you're handling the camera quite well. Let's see what some of your peers had to say. A lot of shadow variety in each compositions. Yes, I would agree. Very nice in variation in color. I would say it's pretty subtle. Your temperature is very subtle. That's not a criticism, it's an observation. So, you might have pushed it a little bit farther, but didn't include those images. This wasn't about posting wonky looking, funky colored photos. It's really more about exploring the sort of, I guess, aesthetic variations that you can achieve through different colors. Only we noticed a couple of pictures are very blurry, and the focus could be better. Okay, that's fair enough. The other would display too much of the bottle rather than the focus on the shapes. Yeah, I mean, and that is a challenge, you know, especially when you guys first started, the whole class first started making these images. Clearly, you were making photographs of bottles because you hadn't established the expectation, and you had to work through the idea that this is a bottle. And by the end, most of you, if not all of you, were making successful images of shadows and highlights, and you were no longer seeing the bottle for no other reason than you were just fed up with that shape and you were just making shapes. So subverting subject is a very important factor in photography, because subject is easy. The subject, it doesn't matter. A photograph is very good at rendering a subject. What a photograph and a camera is not good at is making it about a subject rather than just of a subject. That's your job, to make it about the subject. And so, yes, it's going to be a continual sort of dedicated effort to move past imagery that is just of a thing, and to get and use the lighting exercises, and to use the principles that we're going to be learning to get through the subject, so that the viewer is no longer just seeing a bottle, but they're seeing shapes, shadows, and even emotive qualities. Let's see. Overall, Sierra, wonderful job. You could really see improvement in their images as the project went on. Yes, I would agree. Yeah, I think you got better and better with each session. We love all of the colors and the way that the lighting is coming through the tops and the bottoms of the bottles. Yes, very good. You can really see diffusion of the filter light causing the shadows to soften hard in the same image. Yes, and that's a very good observation there. You know, as I was saying, you know, we're sort of saying the same things here, which is good. It means that that the group that evaluated your work understands certain things, because I'm bringing them up, they're bringing them up. And so we can see that you're using those variations very well. Overall, we feel you did a wonderful job, and there are a few improvements that could be made, other than, you know, being selective in terms of the images you choose to avoid over repeating compositions. I think I would agree with this. It's an excellent job. You're definitely demonstrating your understanding of the principles, which is an important thing. We'll just tighten up your focus and work on being sure that we are selecting images that are varied enough to include in the same image. So, all right. Well, you'll also receive a numeric evaluation, but I thought these videos would be helpful when it comes to feedback. All right. We'll see you in class.